Yeah, right. Are we rolling? All right. I was thinking about one of my friends last week and thinking about what a remarkable life that he has lived. And so I reached out to him. I called him up and I was like, yo, you realize, the type of life you live, man? Do you see how remarkable it is? And do you appreciate it? Are you grateful for it? I believe that having a grateful heart, is very important as far as being able to attract the things that we want out of this life. And the friend that I'm talking about, his name is Abdul Aziz. He's royalty from the Bronx. And he is my longest lasting adult friendship. I met him in 1979 when I was 19 years old, and I'm now 60, the big 60. All right. And, we don't have a type of friendship where we talk every day, every week, or even necessarily every month. But whenever we do touch base again, it's always love, and we just pick it up, right where we left off. So, as I was saying, to me, he has a truly remarkable life. We can talk about martial arts first. So when I met him in 1979, his name was Kendu Allah. He was a member of the 5% Nation back then, 5%er, which for those you don't know, it was a branch of Islam. And the founder broke away from the Nation of Islam, and they formed the 5%ers. So his name was Kendu Allah. He was a brown belt under Derek Williams at the time, and I was a yellow belt under Soke Little John Davis, who is one of Moses Powell's top students. And we hit it off immediately. I'd be competing against his students, in my division. And he always had kind and encouraging words for me, and pointed out different ways that I could be better, particularly when it came to kata, to make it sharper. And I remember specifically he told me, do it more like you know it. And I said, what do you mean do it more like I know it? And then he showed me what I meant. And it was basically, cutting down the time lapse between moves and, different things like that. So his martial arts training started in the 60s. This is long before the first wave of movies hit the scene in 1973, right? And he trained at his brother's, and he trained in a style I don't know the name of the style, but it was a style where they only had one kata, and there was heavy emphasis on basics and fighting and sparring. So when he was introduced to Derek Williams, he was attracted to that, and he decided to branch off and start Shotokan under Master Derek Williams. Needless to say, that did not go too well with his brothers that were, older than him. But he saw that it was something that would help to enhance his development, and he went ahead and started training in Shotokan. Years later, he was doing very well competing. He competed in weapons, forms, and fighting. And flash forward now to when I'm a black belt, and I pointed out to him that his fighting style is not ideally suited, not best suited to take advantage of his best attributes, right? So I believe in fighting, you decide, determine what your best attributes are, and then you build your fighting style, around that, right? So I'm 6'3", 225, and a pretty decent kicker. So I always preferred to fight, long range, right? Starting off with kicks, using the kicks to set up my hands, to set up the punches and whatever, and keep someone at long range. And if they do come in and close the gap on me, then I'm gonna move off to the side, punch him out, and get him back in the range where I want. So I mean, that's just, one small example of what I want, of what I'm talking about in terms of style and, and then, building a strategy. If you guys saw the fight recently between Canelo and Callum Smith. So Callum Smith is 6'3", 168 pounds. And the Canelo was a 5'9". So this guy had a huge reach advantage over Canelo, but he didn't use it. And he ended up, losing a unanimous decision. And basically, Canelo beat the crap out of him. And so Callum Smith is an example of a guy that understands the X's and O's of boxing, but doesn't understand strategy. So he can throw the punch, the hook, or the jab, all this stuff correctly. But, his understanding of strategy is, just wasn't there. Whereas Canelo's, mental game was vastly superior, and that's why he won. So anyway, so back to Abdul Aziz. So I told him, he's like, what do you mean? I said, man, look at your sidekick, So I nicknamed his sidekick the Monster. And then, he would come out and train with me a few times a week. And we started making adjustments to his fighting style. And I started introducing him to, to more modern day drills. In Shotokan, they were still training in a very traditional way, where they would, doing a lot of kata, a lot of, walking up and down the floor, punching in the air and things like that. So I introduced him to a lot more two-man drills when we worked on, timing, defense, blitzing, and, things of that nature. And, he was very open to that. And later, he actually started training with Jadi Tenshin, super fighter Jadi Tenshin, and continued, his evolution as a fighter and continued his evolution as a martial artist. So, coming from a traditional background like that, I give him all the credit in the world for that, because a lot of people, they approach martial arts as if it's, like a team sport or something, like, oh, I'm Shotokan and, and that's all I'm ever going to do. Like, it's like it's a part of a gang or something like that. It's not like that. I mean, martial arts is a vast universe. It's a smorgasbord out there. And, I want to taste a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I'm not going to go to a buffet and just go to, one dish on the table and take that one dish, and call it a wrap, So, so he was open-minded. I give him credit for that. Now, very important is to talk about his development. His life basically has been one of, I'm going to talk about his spiritual development in a second, but just let me preface that by saying that, his life is remarkable to me because it's been a life of constant reinvention, recreation, transformation, and evolution. If you guys read my book, it was out a few years ago, Stoneheart BX, Stoneheart the Bronx. It examined the question of who among us actually becomes more than our environment has made us. Is that possible, and how is it possible? And to me, Abdul Aziz is an example of someone who became more than his environment made him, and yet did not lose touch with his environment, did not lose touch with his community. All right. So he's not one of these people that you hear about that, he forgot where he came from. Right. So spirituality. Again, I told you when I met him in 1979, he was a 5%er. He went away for a while. Let's just say he was in a place where you do a lot of walking, but you don't really go anywhere. Okay. And that was repaying his debt to society for some wrongdoing. Again, when everyone in your environment is doing wrong, it reaches a certain point where wrong doesn't feel wrong. Wrong starts to feel right. And again, like I said, he was away. While he was away, he met an imam. And this kind of reminds me of the change that happened to Malcolm X when Malcolm X was in prison and discovered Islam. So he met a young imam, and he would attend the imam's lectures. After a while, at first he was resistant to it, but finally he was persuaded. Yeah, let me go check this out. And he said when the imam was talking, he felt like the imam was talking directly about him and his life. This guy had so many authentic details that fit the life of Kendu Allah, that he just became infatuated with what the guy was saying, infatuated with the teachings, enamored in the teachings, and buckled down and became a student of a more traditional Islam. And he left the 5%ers and embraced this Islam, which was, I guess, a more inclusive, a more expansive type of Islam. Now, as you can imagine, that did not sit well with those who knew him as a 5%er. So he took whatever heat that he had to take for that, and he still went ahead and embraced Islam, traditional Islam, or I should say a more traditional Islam, because this is where he felt that he was led to, right? This is where the light led him, and so he went for it. And that's the thing with him that I like about him. He always is constantly seeking resolution, constantly moving towards the light, towards greater and greater light. So to me, his spiritual development was about him making a decision in his life to become a better human being. And in that journey of trying to become a better human being, so now we're talking about embracing self-improvement, self-mastery, and studying books and watching videos and listening to lectures that apply to that endeavor, right? So he realized at a certain point that this activity, this road, this journey of self-mastery is a spiritual endeavor, all right? And once he made that connection, forget it. It's like the universe opened up for him and really increased his knowledge and wisdom and understanding of life, his place in life, and his purpose on earth in this incarnation. He suffered a stroke years ago, and I believe it was a result because he was a cigarette smoker. Even though I'm just wondering, did I actually ever see him smoke a cigarette? I don't think I actually ever saw him smoke a cigarette, but it was just known, that he smoked cigarettes. So he woke up one morning and was, got out of bed and was walking to the bathroom and just had no equilibrium at all, no balance at all. He knew something was wrong, and that's what he found out, that he had, that he had a stroke. So now he had to go into the road of recovery, and he attributes martial arts, particularly the practice of kata, for helping him in his recovery. That became like his physical therapy. He recovered, he recovered to the point where he was successfully able to compete again, and not only compete again, but compete and win, okay? But I believe it was at that point, though, that he did make the decision to stop sparring, because taking blows to the head, it could be extra detrimental. It's detrimental for all of us, but extra detrimental to someone that has already suffered damage to his central nervous system, right, through the stroke. Now, you're not going to believe this, he suffered a second stroke. Yes, he suffered a second stroke. Went in the hospital again, the whole nine. They had him on Coumadin, which, I got my issues with Coumadin. I got my issues with basically, a lot of, these pharmaceutical poisons. But he was on that. He was on that blood thinner for a while. And he came back again. It was a miracle. He came back again. And I pointed out to him that, if he ever decides to tell the story of his remarkable life, these are the three areas that he has to hit on, the mental, the physical, and the spiritual. We have people that we knew, that are not with us anymore. Kevin Thompson is one. Asatita Kevin Thompson, Grandmaster Kevin Thompson. And the late, great, Steve Nasty Anderson, who he competed against. He had the pleasure of competing against once in fighting. Nasty won. But, then, it was a great experience for him. Even though we knew what Nasty was going to do, we just couldn't stop it. So, but anyway, so you look at what happened to those guys. I mean, these guys were, at the pinnacle of physical fitness, at the pinnacle of the sport karate world, and they're no longer with us. And here's a man that could have met his demise also, not just suffering one stroke, but two, and, came out of it. So his life has been one of many, what I call mini miracles. And if he stays on the path, hopefully he'll be able to manifest many more.